Hello and welcome back to the third channel. Today we have got another wonderful interview. Yes, another wonderful interview. The interviews never stop because I am a genius and I know when something works, you never stop. It's like when you make a hit sitcom, you only stop when everyone says, "Go away, we don't want to hear you anymore," unless you're Mrs. Brown Boys, and you can stay around forever because everyone likes you unless you don't like that type of comedy. But we digress. My guest is best known for appearing in 6 episodes of one of the best time travel based programs other than Doctor Who, Outlander. It's the one and only Scott James Kyle.
Hello.
So we'll start right back. We'll start at the beginning when I can say words properly. How did you get into the wonderful world of acting?
If I was looking through old photographs, it would probably be the primary school school panto and the kind of the kids shows you do when you're at primary school. So I think that was more forced than willing. So I know I was in, I remember being, I think I was one of the shepherds in the nativity story. So that was probably my first one, standing with a wee toy sheep on the stage in the school, wanting to be anywhere else but on that stage. And in terms of taking it seriously, I think I went to high school, did a bit of drama, but it wasn't until I was 21 and I went back to college to study it, and it changed my life forever.
Yeah. And was there any TV programs as a child that inspired you going, oh, that looks fun, I might go and give that a go?
Again, I don't have a TV show. I mean, I always loved like Littlest Hobo, about the dog. You can hear Milo, our puppy, in the background barking away. I'll maybe let you see him in a wee minute. I like Littlest Hobo. I loved Knight Rider as well. And yes, kind of stuff like that. As I get a wee bit older, I love things like Lethal Weapon. That was the sort of stuff I started to get into as well. So yeah, the idea of maybe being a kind of hero cop was appealing to me. So yeah, I'd say that kind of watching the kind of movies growing up.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things you've worked on is I'm going to call it a British American program because it's filmed, it's both. What's it like working on the amazing Outlander?
Outlander was probably a dream come true for everybody that got on it because it was huge for the kind of Scottish entertainment industry. Loads of actors and crew and everybody have been employed by it. So I probably didn't quite grasp how big it was when I went on to it, and that was maybe a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it was already, I think they'd done season one by then, and I went in season two, but it hadn't quite hit in Scotland as big as it was hitting in America at the time. So I was probably lucky that way.
Yeah. And do you now get spotted in the street based on the fact that you're in Outlander?
Not so much probably on Outlander because in it I've got a wig on and it's got long, lovely long hair and stuff like that, and I wear a hat and but we're running television adverts just now in Scotland for the play I'm doing. It's singing "I'm Not Billy, He's a Tim," so it's about two football fans or soccer fans if anyone in America's watching. And yeah, I've got a few people asking about Angel's Share. And that's probably because my hair's a bit shorter, and that's what I had in that movie. So you get recognised for different things. I did get recognised for my voice one time in a shop. I was chatting to my wife, and somebody in the queue turned around and said, "Are you from such and such?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "We watched you last night. I recognise your voice." So that was a bit mad getting recognised for your voice.
Yeah. And are you the type of actor that sits there and when you're on something or you're in something, do you sit there and watch it? Or are you one of those people that run directly for the hills to make sure they never see themselves on the screen ever again?
It's an interesting question, and I've met actors that you say wouldn't like to see themselves. I like to see it because when you're there, you're feeling something, your emotions, and you're trying to portray something. And the wee bit of watching it is like your homework of did you land it? Have you did what you were hoping to do? Because so if you don't know it, then all right, it might have felt it, but what you feel sometimes isn't what comes across. That's I chat to stage actors a lot about that. You might feel something on stage, you get a wee tear in your eye, but the back row of the big theatre don't see that wee tear in their eye, so you've got to give a bit more than that. So yeah, I kind of like to watch my stuff to review it. I think everybody that watches it always cringes. Sometimes you hate to hear your own voice on the TV because you're so used to maybe American accents and British accents that when a Scottish accent comes on, you go, "Oh, my accent."
Yeah.
But yeah, I always watch. I always watch.
Yeah. And when you were filming Outlander, did it feel like you were working on this big budget American program, or did it feel like you were working on like an average British type shoot?
I think it was a blessing that we were filming in Scotland, and obviously I'm from Scotland, so a car would come to the house and pick me up, and I would go to set, do the hair and makeup stuff, and then we'd go out, and there's hundreds of men, and there's horses and everything, and you were there, and you were kind of going into it was like time traveling. You were going back in time because everything around you was so real. So it was a true joy that way. I think if we had been maybe flying out to LA to film in the studios in LA, might have felt more pressure and
Yeah,
it might have felt really strange. But I think because it was only down the road, and all the crew as well were all kind of Scottish and stuff, and you'd maybe worked with them and other things.
yeah.
So I think lucky, I think for me that I didn't feel the pressure. I think, and I think to be honest, the true realization of how big the audience for the show only happened after when the show had been broadcast. That you realised, wow, you've been in millions of people's houses in their living room. Now they've been watching you on the screen, so it's a bit surreal.
Mm. And do you reckon that it's gonna be like? Do you reckon because of how big Outlander is, it means that you're more likely to get recognised, like by a broader sense of people, so more people are gonna know your work and go, yes, we want to work with you, and yes, we think you're really good at what you do.
Yeah, that's the normal case. The difficult thing for a lot of actors is if you do anything really well, that's what the next job ends up being. So the danger is that's where kind of typecasting comes from. So my first role on screen was in a movie called Angel's Share, and I played a tough Glaswegian character called Clancy. And then my next role after that, because I did a really good job in that, was a tough Glaswegian soldier in Kijaki, a British war movie that was made by the producers of The King's Speech. So they were Academy Award winning producers, and I got a job in that. And then obviously Outlander was Scottish again, but this time he wasn't like the tough guy or the soldier. He was a crofter and didn't want to go to battle, so that was a wee bit different. More on stage, you get to flex your muscles and do different things. But sometimes if you get good at something on TV or film, you become that go-to guy like Vinnie Jones. Vinnie Jones, the ex-footballer. If there's a tough guy role, he tends to be in the pot. He tends to get seen for it, and I'm sure he can do a lot of other things, and he would like to do other things. So yeah, but it does obviously being in anything that's successful is really good for your career, and it builds your kind of audience. Kind of you call it a fan base, it's just your audience that watch it. So yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things you've done on the stage is heralded as one of the most well-known roles in the history of entertainment. I'm going to say of all time. What was it like playing Romeo in Romeo and Juliet?
Well, it was a huge challenge first and foremost. Romeo was one of my first jobs out of drama school, and I think as part of the college, we'd done some work on Shakespeare, but certainly not enough to equip me to go and play, as you say, one of the most iconic um, lover teenage roles in the world in the history of theatre. So yeah, and the other pressure of it was we were going to Milan to do it,
Yeah,
and it was bilingual. So we had, for example, we had an Italian Mercutio. So we were on stage with someone who you didn't know what they were saying because they're speaking Italian, and you've got all this Shakespeare that you need to fire back at him as well. And I was also working with an actress called Lorna May. I think it's Lorna Craig now, but Lorna had done Romeo and Juliet at the Citizens Theatre in Glasgow just
yeah,
before coming on to do it with me. So she already knew all the lines. She
yeah,
was already brilliant. And that was a big pressure in the rehearsal rooms. But I learned a lot from working in Italy and working on the Shakespeare piece. And I thought it made me a better actor, to be honest.
yeah. And when you were doing the role of Romeo, did you watch anyone else's interpretation, or did you just go in and clear mind, going, "I want to do it my way. I don't want to see what anyone else has influenced my own mind."
I think I'd be lying if I said I didn't watch anything. I think when you're casting something, you're trying to get as many reference points as possible, but also you want to make it your own. When I first went into it, I was kind of playing Romeo as really soft and gentle, and oh, but soft, but light through yonder window breaks, and the director Laura, the Italian director Laura Passetti, she came in and said Romeo's in a gang, Scott. He's a tough guy and he murders somebody in the story. She's like kind of the reason we wanted him to be Glaswegian is because he's rough. Do you know what I mean? He's tough. So that totally transformed it, and she kind of directed me in the scene on the balcony as Romeo's going up to get. He sees this young girl that he wants, and he's going up to take what he wants. And Juliet talks him down, and it made a very interesting scene, and it was very different, probably from a lot of ways it's played, which was very interesting as an actor to get that sort of steer and direction.
Yeah, and do you reckon that because you've done Shakespeare, do you reckon that helped you um helped you with your acting skill become better and better because Shakespeare's one of the like heralded as one of the hardest type of mediums because the wording's not as what we're used to anymore. Do you reckon that helped improve your career going forward?
I suppose yes and no. Yes, that it's another craft. It's a lot of work. You have to put the work in. There's no cheating it. You can't ad lib and make something up if you forget your lines in Shakespeare. You have to know the text. But at the same time, I suppose back when Shakespeare was doing it for the original in the first kind of times, people didn't have TVs and mobile phones, and they had a much stronger attention span, so they could sit for 3.5 hours and watch a theatre show. Now, I suppose a lot of the craft is, can you say the same thing in your body and in your kind of acting as opposed to speaking it? And that was one thing Laura, the director, said. A lot of British actors come on and they just speak. They don't physically engage the roles. And obviously, I was working with Italians who were very animated. So I learned a lot from that. So I suppose it's a bit of both, but yeah, it definitely helps.
Yeah. Because as you said there about people's attention on changing, do you reckon that when you're on stage, you have to make your performances a lot more engaging rather than just saying the words, more engaging so that people aren't just going to get bored and walk off because people now can only sit there for, as you said, 10, 20 seconds, even though films are now going to be like 3 hours long. Do you reckon that it helps using your whole body, not just saying the word, but using the physicalness of yourself to keep people's attention spans longer?
Yes, very much so. I mean, when we were in Italy, we did an exercise called the 7 parts. I won't go into it, but a lot of it is about how your body moves, and incorporating the characters and creatures. And I say I got an awful lot out of work. We did 53 performances of Romeo and Juliet, and I learned an awful lot. And when I came back, I managed to win the Stage Best Actor award at the Fringe. So I think that training and that really helped, and it certainly helped my other roles. So yeah, I definitely think, and on the stage, it has to be much more physical. That's what I was saying. On camera, essentially, you think something, and the camera's here, and on the screen, you're 20-foot cinema screen, so you don't need to do as much. Whereas when you're in the theatre, someone in the back row is saying, "I can't hear you," and "I can't see what you're doing," so you've got to be much more expressive on stage.
And one of the things you've worked on that went on to be a big success, as because it transferred to one of the second best well known channels in Scotland after BBC Scotland, obviously. What was it like working on the cruise?
Oh, I loved working on the cruise. The cruise started out. So the cruise, for anybody watching doesn't know, it was on STV in Scotland, and it's essentially about rival gangs, two kind of heads of rival gangs, and I was in one of the gangs. But it started out as a kind of pilot called Sandwich, and it was Colin Ross Smith, a young filmmaker from Glasgow, gave me a shout to be in it, and it was just a short kind of short film really, and it was so well received that they made this TV series out of it. So we're actually back filming soon. Colin's wanting to do some more of it again, so we're going back to it again, which is absolutely amazing. So we've got some filming in September for the cruise, which is very, very exciting. Going to revisit a character, nearly 20 years later. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And do you reckon that when you did it the first time, do you reckon that you will now play the character slightly different because there's been such a big gap, or do you reckon that you're going to try and play it as similar as what you did 20 years earlier?
It's a great question. I think in life, if I look back to myself as a 20-year-old boy versus today's my birthday, I'm 41 today. So if I look back on that, I'm not the same person I was when I was 20. Life kind of molds and shapes you, and your experiences do. So I think that's the same when you revisit a character 20 years later. You couldn't go back and play them as a 20-year-old you were back then. So you've kind of changed, and there's certain lessons that have happened. But yeah, like, a lot of it will be from the text. You read the text, and it informs on how you're going to play it and what lessons they might have learned in life. If someone's got a baby or something, they've been in a long-term relationship, or if they're still single, kicking about the streets of Glasgow, it's very different how you play it.
Yeah. And for anyone that's watching this that wants to be an actor, what advice would you give someone who wants to get into the world of acting?
A couple of wee bits. One kind of quote I normally pass on to anybody is: infinite patience produces immediate results. So if it's acting's not just a job, it's kind of passion and a labour of love. So it's storytelling, so you encompass it in every part of your life. So that's one, and the other one is just to start. A lot of people want to wait till Outlander phone before they think they'll be an actor. You can go and put on a one-man show in the back room of a pub to 20 people if you want. That's storytelling, that's doing it. Don't wait, essentially what you want to do is keep doing it, learn from your mistakes, and get better and better and better. So one day, if you ever asked to do that one-man show in front of 3,000 people, you're thinking, I've done this 1,000 times. It's dead easy. Do you know what I mean? I know what I'm doing. So probably a bit like you with your podcast, you get better and better every time you do it. So and you're more and more confident, and sometimes you fall down and you get back up, and you learn more for that than you do when you get it right.
Yeah. And one of the things you've done that helps showcase the talent of not just yourself, but the way that radio is still a big medium. What was it like working on the Dead of Fenwick Moor?
Oh yeah, well done your research. So yeah, the Dead of Fenwick Moor was for BBC Scotland on Radio Scotland, and yeah, it was a radio drama. So it was absolutely brilliant. Going into a radio studio, which is very different as well because you're kind of going in, you don't know the other actors, and if you're lucky and you've got a scene with them, you get to do your scene with somebody else. But sometimes you don't know what the other actors are doing or how they sound until you actually hear it on the radio. So that some of the characters, like my character, didn't meet everyone in the play. So the radio play. So it wasn't until I was listening to it on the radio, going out with the audience, that I got to hear the other actors as well. But it's a very different craft, radio. Again, you chat about physically and stage being different from TV. Radio is very different as well because you've got to do a lot of work with your vocals to try and keep it interesting.
Yeah, and is it harder to do radio when you're not connecting with the other actors because you are on your own, or do you reckon that it's a lot more easier because you can focus on your performance, not anyone else's?
It's much more difficult. I suppose it depends on where you are in your life. If you're maybe a bit older and you're working from home, you've got kids, it's nice to work from home, but you really want to be with everybody. A bit like a band. I mean, if you went and recorded an album and everyone was in their own studio in the house, then they'd maybe still have fun, but there's nothing better than being in the studio together and doing it. Then it's the same with that. You want to be with the other actors. You feed off their energy. You get ideas and feelings and emotions from how they play things. And it informs your decision making as well.
Yeah. And do you reckon that when you do radio, it helps to show that you get to do a more wide variety of things due to that it being a lot more cheaper than trying to show what's happening? Do you reckon that it helps you as an actor because you can imagine what's supposed to be there and you know that you don't necessarily have to lower your expectation when you're looking at the script?
Yes, I suppose the best example I'll give you that is on movies like 300, where it's all green screen. I think that's much more challenging than going on to Outlander, where there is 1,000 redcoats in the field, there is horses and carts, and it is 1700 Scotland. It's a lot easier to play something when you look round and it's real. Whereas I think like Gerard Butler, when he was trying to do his, and it's just green screen, there is no armies and there is no mountains and there is no big hole in the ground to kick someone in. I think that would be a lot more challenging to get that right. And radio would be the same, as you don't see it, so you've got to create it in your imagination.
Yeah. And when you were working on Outlander, do you reckon that it was easier to work with horses because they seemed so well trained, or do you reckon that the horses were menacing on set?
Well, firstly, the horses on Outlander were very well trained, they were very well behaved, and they were always very kind. But I think there's a wee bit if you can try and build that relationship with them. 9 times out of 10, the horse, kind of it does what the bosses ask it to do, the trainers ask it to do. But at the same time, if they decide they're not doing something, it was very hard to reason with a horse. Whereas maybe an actor's, knows that that's their job, and if they don't behave, they'll not be on set. The horse is not too fussed about not being in Outlander. So if he's decided there's an apple over there that he's interested in, then you're going to get the apple.
Yeah. And when you got told that when you got the role, did you have to do research by either looking at history books to see what the history is, or did you just watch at the first series of Outlander because you semi know that it's like creative license and like the odd bits and bobs might not be factually accurate?
Mm-hmm. I think the big thing I did was pour through Diana's books, trying to find as much about my character as possible. And from doing that, you started to get an idea in your imagination of what the world would look like. Obviously, Scottish history is part of your kind of high school studies and stuff, so you've kind of got a vague kind of picture of what it would have been like, kind of the living conditions and the tools they would use when they're farming and stuff. But Diana's books were very informative, and I say I was fortunate enough that I got to watch season 1. So I would sit in the house with my wife Karen, and I'd say, how cool would it be if I ride in on a horse? Do you know what I mean? And then there you are, you ride in a horse in season 2. So yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And did you when you had finished reading the original source, did you then decide to change elements, or did you try and keep it as pure to what was written on the page as possible?
Um, 9 times out of 10, if I go into auditions and stuff, I try and personalise stuff. I take kind of a feeling of the monologue, a feeling of the character, and I try and portray it truthfully. I did the same in Outlander, but on set there is script consultants, and it's their job to make sure that what's on the page is what you're saying. So you can maybe try it in a take. You can give a shot at something you think would work. But there will be someone come peddling over and say, that's not what the script is. Can you do this line? So you get a few of that. And Stephen Waters, who played Angus in the show, he was very good at that. He would fire in different things and try things. Sometimes the director loves it and absolutely likes it, and other times I say the script consultant comes over and says, "Could you just say what's on the page?" So you get a couple of shots of maybe doing something you want to do. But you've got to be careful because a lot of people have put a lot of time and effort into writing it and deciding on this, and it's not really for you, the actor, to come in and change it all.
Yeah. And do you reckon that because of it's now being this really popular, successful thing, do you reckon the Outlander itself has helped educate people from around the world on Scottish history?
I think there's no doubt about that. I think it's put more interest into Scottish history than ever before, and also in terms of Scottish tourism. So the amount of people from all over the world that are coming to Scotland to see the Outlander locations and the sites, tourism's booming in Scotland thanks to the TV show. So it's all good. There's a lot more interest in it now than ever.
Yeah. And do you reckon that helps to keep the history alive and to say that everything in life isn't always all happy go lucky? Sometimes it can be a little bit more brutal than you once might think.
Well, I think we just need to watch the news, Tom, to see that isn't all sunshine and rainbows. But yeah, I suppose I think that no history is storytelling over the years. People have told stories, they've written them down, they've documented them, and that's why we've got the information and stuff that we've got today. And I normally chat to young actors about that. Is that people say, "Oh, maybe I'd love to do acting, but I don't think I could do it." And I say, acting's just storytelling. So everything you've learned in your life from a baby up has probably been storytelling with your mum and dad or whoever's looked after you. And the same, everything that you kind of you tell anybody else, it's all storytelling. You go into a job interview, you do a podcast like this, you've got to be your storytelling. So everyone can do it. It's just finding the right stories for you that
Yeah.
are going to be well matched. And I think that's a big thing. I think as an actor, if you can say no to the things that you're not right for, that's as important as saying yes to the things you are right for.
Yeah. And and do you reckon that when you get these big roles, do you reckon that you look at them and you go, well, I've done it like this, and do you reckon each scene you do it, you try and improve what you've done in the previous scene, or do you try and just go, well, I think I'm doing a good job here. I'm just going to stick to what I'm doing.
You're always want to improve, Tom, but the like we filmed on the Angel Share movie, and it was filmed chronologically,
Yeah,
which is quite rare in film TV. So we filmed everything as the timeline of when it was going to happen. So that obviously informs your next scenes if you've already lived the past scene. Whereas sometimes on TV shows, you're filming the newborn baby, but then you go back and you haven't filmed the kind of even known about the pregnancy, but you've already filmed being a dad. So
yeah,
those sort of strange things can happen in film and TV where the timeline's skewed because if they're in a location, they film everything in that location. So if your character over 20 years is in that location, they'll do it all in a week, and then you go back. So yeah, I think as you're kind of each scene that you're performing, you're learning a wee bit more about the character as well, the other characters, and that informs the next one. So that's why the timeline can be really important. I liked working on the Angel Share because it was chronologically. Well, I'll give you an idea. Kajaki, the war movie I did, my first scene was getting my leg blown off. That was the first scene in the movie. So we arrived in the desert. We're there for 6 weeks, and my first day is to portray the Corporal Stu Pearson, who had lost his leg in the incident depicted in the movie. I had to play that scene. So before I'd spoken any words, I had to do that. Do you know what I mean? So that's a big scene to do.
yeah. And do you reckon that performing, trying to pretend that some element of your body's been blown off, do you reckon that's harder than trying to work out how you're going to portray the lines?
Um, It's a difficult one because I did a lot of research on that. So I looked into IEDs online and stuff. Different people's, some people are screaming, some people are not. And then I spoke to Stu, who was there. Stu told me his version of events, and then I checked it out with some of the other soldiers that were there that day, and they were like, no, he was screaming for his mammy and stuff. He wasn't as brave as he thinks he was. He doesn't remember it all clearly. So, and then there was a wee bit of license for me to go, how do I want to play this? And one of the big things I did is, if you imagine, if you ever hurt your nose or had a punch in the nose, and someone comes over and says, "Let me see it," and you're saying, "Get away from me! Don't touch it! You know, it's damaged." I kind of played it like that with the leg. That I didn't want the other soldiers in it to be able to treat the leg, so I was wrestling them, which was good. It gave me something to push against, and I think it really helped the other actors as well. But we didn't speak about that before it, so they only found that out when they tried to touch the leg, that I wasn't going to let them touch the leg. So that was really good, and I think that comes across in the scene in the movie.
Yeah. And is there any upcoming projects that you're working on, or that you've worked on, that you're looking forward for people to either be able to see on stage, or see or hear on screen and radio?
Yeah, there's a couple. So I just mentioned, you mentioned the cruise because you've done your research. So well done, Tom. But the cruise we are filming in September again, so there'll be new footage of that, and it'll be flashbacks back to. So they're doing some of the anti-aging technology in it to make us look younger. So that's going to be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to working on that. And at the moment we're doing Singing I'm Not a Billy, He's a Tim, which is the play I mentioned at the start about the two football fans locked in a prison cell together. So it's a three-hander. And funnily enough, that's another role that I'm revisiting almost 2 decades later. I'm getting to go back on the stage with that. So we open the Edinburgh Festival on the 31st of July, and we run until August, and that's at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre. So it's a big, big venue, and we've got 24 performances throughout August. So that's exciting.
Wow. And why do you reckon that the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is still so popular and still so influential to actors and comedians and performers of all different kinds?
I think obviously it's an amazing city, Edinburgh. A real cultural hub, and the Edinburgh Festival has just been grown and grown and grown over the years. It's a great place to go and test new work, to try things out. A lot of the times in theatre, you maybe predominantly do Friday and Saturday nights. So if something goes wrong on a Saturday night, you don't get a chance to fix it till next week. Whereas in the festival, because it's on every day, comedians, if they make a joke and it doesn't get a laugh that night, they can change it the next night. And I think that's why a lot of comedians like it. So people take shows there to kind of break them in before they go on the national tour, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're taking Singing I'm Not a Billy, He's a Tim, and Singing I'm Not a Billy, She's a Tim there. So both casts will get a chance to kind of break the show in, and then we'll go on to bigger venues on the tour.
Yeah. And do you reckon that doing it at the Fringe helps you to see what elements work, what elements don't work, and how you can portray it differently, because you think that you've done it like this, but you think you could do it like that. And do you reckon that that helps because you've had this wide wide variety of time to practice and learn and improve?
Yeah, there's another thing about the fringe is the time that you're allowed. Your slot is normally shorter than you're allowed in the on the touring circuit. So our show, for example, normally runs at 90 minutes, and it has to be 75 minutes for the fringe. So we have to lose 15 minutes. So that's a big job to sit and decide what parts of the show, because all of the parts of the show make the show, but what parts can we afford to lose that don't hinder the show? What parts can we afford to lose that don't hinder the characters' journeys? Or kind of or lessen the performance in any way. So that's what we're working on just now, is the shorter versions with 15 minutes. So people are arguing over a line. No, I don't want to lose that line. That's an important line. Like, well, we need to save time, so something has to go. 15 minutes of the show has to disappear. So that's a big challenge for it.
Yeah, and do you reckon that's hard because you know that when you end up touring it, you end up trying to work out to bring that stuff back? Do you reckon that becomes harder because the actors on
Well,
stage have to learn a new script and have to relearn the bits that they've had to not learn for this run?
Well, there's a couple aspects to that, Tom. Is sometimes what we've done previously is it trims the fat. It takes out bits that maybe aren't necessary, and it takes out bits that might have been a wee bit indulgent, which certainly can happen on a tour. You know, more, you throw in an ad lib and it gets a laugh, and that becomes in every night, and then somebody else adds an ad lib and it gets fat. The show gets fat and takes longer. The Fringe is really good at trimming it down, so it's kind of a good process, I think, for shows to go through. It gets it back to the core message of the show. So yeah, and in a way, I'm kind of looking forward to it. There's bits that of my part that are going to go, that I've been doing for years, and I'm going, but I think it's the right decision. Those bits can go, other bits of the show can.
Yeah.
So those are big decisions where you have to be a bit selfless. and think of the show and not just your own part.
Yeah. And do you reckon that theatre is becoming more popular again because of the resurgence of all these TV and film actors joining the theatre, or do you reckon it's becoming more popular because more people are getting the opportunity to see theatre because of all the different variety of ways to watch the theatre now?
I think that, I mean, theatre's probably more popular than ever, but we still need, people to come along. But I suppose like anything, there's challenges in anything. Like cinema tends to be struggling a lot now because Netflix and TV shows. But as you say, there some of those TV shows create. Well, they bring the actors into people's living rooms, and I know from Outlander, there's been loads of people who've joined my social media and came and seen the shows that I'm in because they've seen Outlander. So
Yeah.
in many ways, there's a positive to be said out of the big kind of TV shows that go on the TV. But yeah, I think theatre's more popular than ever, and there's more people passionate about it. So I think it's yes, it's going to be growing and growing and growing. I think it'll be around forever. I don't see theatre going away anytime soon. Live entertainment and people getting together is a magical spiritual experience. So I think it'll be around for a long, long time.
Yeah, because a lot of like TV shows now have been turned into musicals, so a lot more people are going, oh, that's interesting. Like someone I can't remember where, but they've announced that they're doing a Come Down With Me, the musical, which will just be
Mm-hmm.
an interesting thing. Watch people bicker whilst trying to sing that they're bickering, or someone shoving a whisk in the mouth whilst trying to sing. It'll be an interesting concept, but that's what theatre's good for because you can experiment with these concepts. So you wouldn't have had Bake Off the musical without having theatre being still popular and people singing about baking cakes and watching them
Mm-hmm.
burn in the oven. And do you reckon that theatre is a good way to experiment and do things that you wouldn't get to do on TV and film?
Yeah, it's a very different medium, and I suppose you were just touching on there about shows that have kind of maybe been on TV and then went to stage. Well, The Wizard of Oz was a huge movie, and then Wicked was born, the big theatre show. So, I mean, that's a great example. Wicked's a huge show in the West End now. Do you know what I mean? And that kind of that's kind of came from that. So yeah, I think I don't think I'll be running along to see Come Dine with Me anytime soon, but it might be very interesting. I don't know. I've not heard that one, so that's an interesting idea. But yeah, it gives you a creative space to try new things and have fun with it. And a lot of TV shows and stuff start off in the theatre and then they become TV shows. They do really well. So there's some ideas in the West End and stuff that an idea, a concept, and then something bigger happens of it.
Yeah. And with your new shows that you're going to be touring, will you ever film them so people who can't make it to the theaters or can't make it to the shows will you ever film them so other people outside of that can watch them?
We did film in 2009. We filmed Singing I'm Not Billy, He's a Tim at the Citizens Theatre in Glasgow, and that was a DVD that was available, and lots of people bought that, and lots of people still chat about that. It's a different how people consume media when they're sitting in the house is very different to the theatre. So in many ways, I think though that a video or a filming of a theatre show doesn't do it justice.
Yeah,
So it's a difficult one because you see people sitting in the house, they're used to cameras being really close to people's faces and stuff like that. And on the stage, it's kind of different. And also, the performances, as I said, are larger than life because someone in the back row, and then you do it on camera, it looks like that's overacting. But actually, in the theatre, it's not overacting. So, yeah, we may well film it again. But I mean, I went to see Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat, and I remember buying the CD collection for it. So there's always that aspect of people want to take a bit of the theatre home with them.
yeah,
So I'm sure we will.
yeah. And have you got any other upcoming projects that are going to be out within the next few years that you are excited for people to see?
In terms of when they're going to be out, I don't know. We work on projects a lot. It's funny in the theatre industry, you can work for 3 weeks and then you're on the stage. In the TV and film industry, you can work on something that you don't see it for a year or 18 months. So in terms of things coming out, I don't know, but I'm excited about the next projects. I suppose that is working on The Cruise, the TV show, and going back onto the stage with the tour. So that'll keep me busy for now, and anything else I'll tweet about when I can and when I'm allowed to. When I've been sworn to secrecy on a few things, so I'll announce them when you're allowed to.
And so as we come around the bend of the cul-de-sac, This is a poor analogy. I don't know where I'm going with it, but we'll see. And we come towards the halting point of the fuel of the car and crashing because the car's probably 30 million years old. Um, where can people find you without giving away your home address? Where can people find your stuff to see more of you?
Well, the best place probably to go is my website, which is www.scottkyle.co.uk, and that's Scott with two T's and it's Kyle. Or I'm on social media. So again, all those links are on the website, and I tweet a lot on Twitter and I put stuff on the social media. So you'll find all that through the website. So the website's probably the best place to go.
And would you be able to remind our viewership of when they can go and see your Edinburgh Fringe show?
Yep, so we open the Edinburgh Festival on the 31st of July at 6 o'clock at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre. That's run by the Pleasance, and we're on until the 25th of August. So we're on the whole month of the Fringe. So it's a great venue. It's a 400-seater venue, so there'll be thousands and thousands of people coming to see it, and it would be great if people that can get along and support us.
And where can people purchase the tickets?
So you can go onto the Edinburgh Festival website, the Fringe website, but you can also go through my website again. So it's just scottkyle.co.uk is the best place, and that's got all the tour dates for Edinburgh and the whole tour throughout the UK.
And whereabouts in the UK are you going to take the tour?
We do. I think there's 70 performances over. I think it's 60 different venues in 3 different countries. So we're in Scotland. We go to England. We're doing Northern Ireland, and we're doing the Republic of Ireland as well. So yeah, we're very busy, and we've got some people from Welsh theatres coming to see us in the Fringe. So the Fringe is like a big shop for theatre shows. So we've got 13 people coming to see our show with a chance of them taking it to see that to their theatre. So like I say, we've got 70 performances, but there'll be more added, I'm sure.
Yeah. And will you post that on social media when you find out if you get
Yeah,
more?
and it's all on the website. Every venue that you can buy a ticket for is on my website. So that's definitely a place to go. scottkyle.co.uk.
And so there we have it. Another exuberant interview. See, I thought that word on top of my head there. That's perfect. See, the eating that dictionary a small corner at the time very much worked. But I do have to admit, when you do eat a dictionary, use a pinch of salt, because it's a little bit too wooden. But I'll not quit my day job before anyone asks. And so thank you for letting me interview you.
No worries at all. Thanks very much for taking the time out of your day to have a chat with me.
Welcome. And so there we have it. Another excellent interview. Now, if you want to see more interviews from me, stay tuned because I'm never not doing interviews. That's why you own 21 YouTube channels because then you can pop up anywhere. And even if you get bored of me, I'll always be there. You close your eyes and you'll hear me and see me. I'm like a nightmare, but I'm like a fun, jolly nightmare. A nightmare you always want to have. So there we have it. Thank you guys for watching, and remember, no, I forgot.